Good evening, everyone. You're in the spotlight with Brian Gardner for this Thursday, January the 3rd, 2019. I got it right. Usually I don't. Good to have you all here for our first show of 2019 and our first and only show of this week. Hope your week is treating you well. Hope you all had a great holiday, great New Year's. And for those of you that didn't join us last week, a great Christmas and great holiday season because it is over with now. Now it's kind of like that weird transition now. Back in, you're getting back into the swing of things, and you're, kind of going back to routine. And January, it's very interesting. And I don't want to ramble because I don't have a lot to do and that kind of thing. But it's always interesting to me because I remember as a kid, I used to have the same feeling. Um, After New Year's that I did when, after Labor Day, because now for me it was worse after Labor Day because I'm a big fan of summer. I like summer. I like warmer weather. So, when Labor Day hit and it was going back to school, whether it be elementary school, high school, college, whatever, there would be that kind of like depression. But it wouldn't just be about going back to school, 'cause I didn't really mind school too much. But it would also be because you knew that fall was coming in winter, and a lot of the things that I enjoyed doing, I couldn't do anymore. So that was part of it. Now, in, and the same thing was in January because one of the parts about winter, one of the parts about the Christmas season that I like is that it's the only time of year where it's the only part of winter, I should say. I'm sorry, I'm way off here. I'm going all over the place. But like the day after New Year's, it's kind of like the day after Labor Day. Okay, you come to that realization that the holiday season is over. What do you like? What do you like about the holiday season? Well, it's not just about gifts. There's always something going on. Okay, if you hate winter, one of the reasons if you hate winter, a big reason why you hate winter is because you can't really do anything unless you're a skier, unless you have kids, maybe you build stuff in the snow. But even then, as an adult, you might not like it. But if you're a skier or somebody that enjoys like maybe hockey or something, and I like hockey, but I can live without it. Okay, there's nothing for you in winter. There's nothing. It's just nothing for you to do. If it snows bad enough, you can't really go out. You're afraid to drive. You don't want to do any unnecessary driving. I mean, it really can be a rough season. And so, I mean, unless you like sports. Now, look, once you get to March and winter's almost over, you got March Madness. And on Sundays you have football in January, but I mean, but even then, look at the playoffs. I mean, once you get into the NFL playoffs, what you got 4 games this week, 4 games next week, then 2, then 1. That's it. Football's almost over, and college football is ending within the next week. So you don't even have football anymore. And in December you have football. So, really, once you get beyond New Year's, for the most part, football's over. The holidays are over. So now you got nothing. It's just like January is basically, hey, it's a new year, back to reality. You kind of go back into that routine of I would say post Halloween, if you will, where it's like, you know what, you go to school, you go to work, you do your thing, and then you wait for things to kind of go into that next spurt of things going on. Yeah, along the way you're gonna have Valentine's Day, and along the way you're gonna have St. Patrick's Day, and by the time St. Patrick's Day happens, you hope that spring has sprung officially. But generally speaking, until you get to maybe the end of April, things quiet down considerably. And then things pick up again, and that carries you for the most part through the rest of the year, sans October, September, and October. So, to me, it's always a rough thing. Maybe not as rough as after Labor Day. And look, I'm not a kid anymore. I'm an adult, but still, I still feel that. Like I felt that on Wednesday. I'm like, oh, the holidays are over. And even though it's a lot of craziness and it's busy and there's so much to do, you still miss it because you're doing something. It's active, it's activity. And I like that. I like being hectic. I like things going on. And even though I get really tired and I hate it at times, I still, at least it keeps your mind off the fact that it's winter, and it keeps your mind off the fact that sometimes you're stuck and there's nothing going on. And, it's not like summer where, hey, you know what? There's nothing to do. Oh, let's go out. Let's go for a drive. Or let's go to the park. Or let's do this. Or let's do that. You're just so limited in what you can do. So I know I'm rambling. I know this is completely off topic. I apologize, but I just wanted to state that because there's seasonal depression syndrome is a thing. and it's a thing for a reason. Because people get depressed after the holidays, and some people get depressed after summer. Because it can get depressing. Is that realization that there's things that you can no longer do that you might have been doing for the last few months, and it can be hard. It can be really, really hard. So, that's that feeling that you get. And now the holidays are over and a lot of people are getting it. And some people get it to a little bit extent. Like you feel like a little bit like me, I feel like, oh, blah. But then some people get it really bad. They just close themselves off for a month or so. And, that's, it can get pretty bad. So, but yeah, that's what you're in right now. You're in that kind of lull period now where, we're coming to the end of football. Your holidays are over. It's a transitional period, and then things kind of build themselves back up until you get to like March Madness and all kinds of things like that. So, I'm speaking of this strictly from a sports point of view. I mean, I know in entertainment there's things going on like awards and stuff, but even that's scattered throughout the next couple months. So, so, but anyway, just my kind of random kind of mention of random host talk thing to start off the show here. You know, about how things can get very boring and blah after the holidays. Much like you do after summer. But anyway, I just wanted to kind of ramble on about that. And thank you for indulging me. I'm sure I'll get mail about that, but whatever. Anyway, good to have you all here. And again, hope your holiday season was good. We are back in the swing of things now. This is our only show of the week. Next week, we'll back to our 2-show-a-week schedule, which will carry us probably into March. And, we got a lot of stuff coming up, a lot of changes. As you all know, we've been hinting at these changes for quite a while, but they'll actually be actively happening. Not so much in January because I just don't want to do too much with the film awards. I want to get beyond the film awards and then we'll get into some newer stuff. But once we get beyond the film awards in February, you'll start to notice some huge changes. Almost instantly. I had said before that I'd like to go gradual, but I think I'm just going to rip off the Band-Aid after the film awards. We'll talk more about that in the weeks ahead. Next week, a week from tonight, the deadline for the In the Spotlight Film Award nomination ballots. Those are due a week from tonight. So those of you that have those ballots, get those in by next Thursday at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Also, for those that have not been able to participate yet, remember you can still participate in the awards by involving yourself with the live vote of the awards. Those are the awards we voted on live during the In the Spotlight Film Awards this February. So if you'd like to help to decide the nominees and the winners, you can still do that. We'll begin the process of deciding the nominees next Thursday, and I'll explain to you how you can all do that next Thursday. And then we'll walk you through those steps for those of you that have never done it along the way. So film awards stuff will be picking up next week, and the film awards take place in February. So obviously that's a big deal for us. Golden Globes take place on Sunday. We'll talk about them next week. I'm not going to offer up a preview or anything because we got too much else to do, and I really don't feel like it. But I think it's going to be a good show, a lot of good stuff. I told you when the nominees came out, I liked the nominations, especially for the film. TV, not so much, but for film, I liked it. So, I get it feels going to be a lot of fun from a film standpoint. So we'll talk about that next week probably. Oscars still don't have a host, so nothing to talk about there. The Academy Awards will be coming up in February as well. We'll talk about that along the way. Any other award shows along the way, we'll talk about them. So you won't get any of that tonight, but I just wanted to acknowledge those things as we're kind of coming back here after the holidays. A couple other things tonight. We got a lot to do tonight. Obviously, we'll look back at the last week of the NFL season, look ahead to Wild Card Weekend. We'll talk about the college football bowls. Spoiler alert, we'll not talk long about it. I thought, it's funny. I said this last week, we'll talk about the bowls next week. We'll talk about the playoff games next week. I thought we'd have loads to talk about. Well, we don't, because the bowl games and the playoff games were terrible. They just were. So we'll do a segment on them, but we won't go beyond that. We'll preview the championship game, which is kind of ho-hum at this point. We'll do all that tonight. And then we'll do we got the box office beat on the entertainment side. I did not put wrestling in the show description. I will acknowledge wrestling, because briefly at the end of the show, there's just not a lot going on. Obviously, there were some significant developments on Raw and SmackDown, but both shows were taped. Again, though, nothing earth-shattering, nothing that I feel like we need to, because, again, I still feel like people are still kind of getting back in the swing of things. So I feel like we shouldn't do too much. We just got to do the stuff that we have to do. I don't want the show to go too long. And I think next week things will really pick up in regards to wrestling because you're on the road to the Royal Rumble and all that kind of stuff. So I'll touch on at the end of the show. We'll get into a few things and then move on from there. As far as any other sports stuff, not much going on in baseball. David Robinson signed with the Phillies today for 2 years, $23 million. I'm not really overly shocked. I don't think the Yankees really wanted him back, and it seemed like the Phillies were zeroing in on him. I think that's going to spark things because things kind of quieted down over these last few weeks until Tulowitzki signed with the Yankees on Monday. And by the way, the Tulowitzki thing, people are freaking out about that. If you're a Yankee fan, don't freak out about that. That means nothing. That really doesn't. Okay? It really doesn't. They can easily just cut the guy. I think it's a low risk, high reward type thing. I think it's a smart signing. It looks like they're going to, who knows what Machado, it looked like the Yankees were going to get him. Nobody really knows. I still think the Yankees are going to get him. Because I think that's where he wants to be. And I think the holdup is that he's hoping that he can maybe get more money out of him somehow, who knows. But I was thinking that by now we know. I'm guessing by next week when we next have our next show on Tuesday, we'll know. I don't think they can keep it going much longer. But there's really no big free agency news other than, Tulowitzki signed a couple days ago with the Yankees. Then Robertson goes to the Phillies, which I think is a smart move. Look, here's the bottom line. For anybody that's complaining about Robertson, the Yankees not keeping Robertson. First of all, he ruffled some feathers with the whole playoff bonus thing. Okay, so that didn't help matters. But I also think the Yankees wanted to move on from him. Let's remember something. They let him go before. They let him go. He wants to close. He does not want to just be a setup man. He wants to close. That's the thing that people don't realize about these relievers. The Yankees had essentially 3 closers, maybe more, in their bullpen. These guys want to close. They make more money closing. Robertson was traded to the Yankees after closing with the White Sox for 3-4 years. He wants to close. He makes more money doing that. So this was, to me, this was a no-brainer. He was never going to close for the Yankees. If somebody offered him good money to go close, he was going to go do that. He has a World Series ring. So, yeah, that was always going to happen. And I don't think the Yankees wanted him back that much anyway. I think he was a fallback. I think the Yankees wanted Britton back. I think they wanted Octavino, and I think they wanted Britton. I think they're going to get Britton. I think the reason why they want Britton, because really they could get away with just doing Octavino if they wanted to. They really could. They could go get Adam, and that'd be fine. But I think they want Britton because they're really afraid of Chapman. They don't know what they're going to get with Chapman. He's had injury issues and all kinds of things. And if they go get Britton for 4 years, then when Chapman's done, they still have Britton. I think Britton's almost an insurance policy for them. So I think that's why they want Britton. But we'll see how that goes. But right now, Robertson to the Phillies for 2 years. Tulowitzki signs. I think that the Robertson signing today will spark things. I think you'll see a couple bullpen guys go sign next week, and I think Machado will sign next week. Then we'll see what happens with Harper. Once Machado signs, I think Harper will sign pretty quickly. Because anybody, especially at the Phillies, who's on Machado, I think the Phillies will up their offer huge, and then Harper's going to have to pretty much take it or leave it at this point. And there's a part of me that still thinks that the Nationals could still get him. The Nationals still offered him his best deal, and he didn't take it because he thought he'd get better. And knowing that Boris met with the Nationals a few weeks back, I can still see where they're like, you know what? Is that the offer still available? Because we'll take it. I could still see that happening. Just the fact that the Nationals offered that to him tells me that, that they really would want him back, and maybe they consider giving him that offer again. And if they do, why wouldn't you take it? He's a star in Washington. He knows the team. He's been there. That's the only way he's going to get that kind of offer. The money's not there. And this is something, and we'll talk about this over the next few weeks, depending on how free agency continues to go. We know how it went last year. Look, if Harper and Machado do not get the money that we all thought they were going to get, if they don't even get close to it, you've heard this on a lot of radio shows, I imagine, you're going to head for a strike in baseball. These players are pissed. They are pissed because they got spoiled rotten for over almost 2 decades, where the market just kept going up, 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 up. contracts kept going up, 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 up. Teams were so desperate, whether either to put butts in the seats or to win, that they would pay top dollar. And now, with the advent of analytics and general managers being so intelligent and so smart and realizing, hey, and with WAR especially, GM's going, hey, if I go out and sign this guy, I only add, statistically, I'm only adding 6 more wins to my season. He's not worth that kind of money. I'd rather go get 3 or 4 good players than get that one player that's going to tie up my payroll. Because them 3 or 4 good players together are going to get me 20 to 30 more wins. That's what's happened. That's what's changed, is that they realize that one player doesn't make that much of a difference. Now, this is something that I don't think you need analytics to figure out. Because think about this for a second. That was always the case. You look at all these teams, whether it was Miami giving Stanton that contract or Texas giving A-Rod that contract way back in the day. When you went out and paid gave a player the kind of contract that pretty much hamstrings your entire payroll, where 60 or 70% of your payroll is in one player, how are you supposed to go build anything around that player? Everything can't be your farm system. It can't. So to me, it should have been common sense. Somebody should have put their foot down ages ago and said, hey, look, I'm not giving you that kind of money, because if I do that, I can't improve the team. I'm not improving the team by just going in one good player. I'm improving the team by building an entire team, by putting together a great team as a whole, by getting a roster full of good, talented players. Look at that Red Sox team last year. It's not one guy. I mean, look at the teams that win World Series. They're just not one guy. You can't win with just one guy. So to go out there and spend the kind of money that Harper and Machado are going into this offseason wanting makes no sense. It doesn't win you championships. It doesn't. I mean, if you got enough payroll and you can field a team of 6 or 7 or 8 of them, then I guess it could. Most times it doesn't. Because most teams can't afford 6 or 7 of those kind of guys. But we would be. But I do think we're headed for a work stoppage in baseball. I really do, because I think the players are going to be are pissed off, and they're going to try to make a stand and say, we're not getting what we deserve. And honestly, nobody deserves that kind of money. I'm sorry, nobody. I don't care what line of work you're in. Nobody does. I mean, contracts in sports in general were out of control, but in baseball, it was borderline. It was ridiculous where anybody else was. I'm glad that teams are realizing this. I'm glad that they're putting their foot down, saying, no, we're not doing it. We're not doing it. It's just not smart. So it's been a very quiet market. It's been a very quiet market pretty much since what? Early December. So I imagine things will pick up now. I think the Robertson thing today will pick things up, at least from the bullpen market, and we'll see how it goes. Maybe I would think by next week, next time we're talking, we'll have some things to talk about in terms of baseball and free agency and whatnot. So I think things, and then once the big fish come off the board, Machado and Harper, I think you'll start to see a lot of signings. And I think you're supposed to see signings even during spring training, which is going to suck for some guys because you got the same problem as last year. These guys aren't going to be ready, but it is what it is. It's the state. I think things will pick up over these next few weeks for sure. Now that we're past the holidays, and especially once the big free agents come off the board. So not much to talk about baseball, even though I just gave you a little bit of baseball here off the top here. So not really anything to talk about there. Obviously, if something happens over the weekend that we'll talk about next week. So nothing to go there, nowhere to go there. Basketball, not much going on there. So you know what? It's really just going to be about tonight, about football, both pros and college. Okay, we'll do a little wrestling at the end of the show. We got the box office beat on the entertainment side. We will not be doing TV highlights. Those will return next week. Not much going on this week as far as TV stuff, just kind of getting back into play yesterday. So we'll just do that next week. So yeah, so tonight's show, pretty much football and then a little entertainment and a real wrestling. That's pretty much it. And then next week we'll be back to normal. We'll do our sports and wrestling probably on Tuesday, and the next Thursday just be entertainment. So kind of be longer shows on Tuesday, shorter shows on Thursday, like we were doing a couple weeks ago, and then we'll do that for a few weeks, and then we'll see what happens when February gets here, and things will start to be different, as I said it earlier. So, all right, so let's get down to business here, and I kind of just got right into things, but I should take the time, like I always do, to remind you all the ways which you can interact and contribute to our show. So please let me do that right now. Remember, you can email us at itspotlight411@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight411. Remember to use the hashtag itspotlight411. And you can also find us on Facebook. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on Facebook, and then make sure that you like our fan page once you find it, please. That way you can interact with us and all that cool, fun stuff. All right. Now that I got that done, should have done that at the beginning of the show, but I went into my little random after holiday depression spiel, and then I kind of went into giving you a little baseball and such. So my fault, but you know what? Hey, it's my show. Let me do what I want with it. So, all right, so let's get down to business here. We'll start off with the football. Again, we won't do a lot of college because the bowls and the playoff games let us down, but we will do a lot with the NFL, and we'll start with that because that's where the story is. And we went into the last weekend of the regular season with the idea that we had a lot to settle, more than we probably thought. Like I said a month ago, we had seeds to settle. Who would get the buys? Who would in the AFC, would the Steelers or the Ravens win the division? When the loser team that didn't win the division was going to go home. Colts and Texans, essentially one game playoff. Who gets the 6th seed? And the NFC, Eagles and Vikings. Eagles win, Vikings lose, Eagles go. Vikings win, Vikings are in. That's what you were looking at. So and there's more than that. There were seeds on the NFC side that are up for grabs. It just was again more to settle than we ever could have imagined. And look, you got the NFL did what they do best on the last week of the regular season. If they have something to play for, teams have something to play for, they set it up beautifully. The first wave of games didn't have a lot going on other than a couple of seeding things, which really was just the Patriots. If they won, which they did, if they beat the Jets, they would take the 2 seed, and they did. They did that. They handled their business against the Jets. I still don't think they look great, but they did what they had to do. So the Patriots won their game. They took the 2 seed, which pretty much settled, Texans if they won into the 3. Now remember, if the Texans had lost, and the winner of the Colts-Titans game would end up being the division winner, and then the Texans would drop to the 6th seed. That's how it would all played out. So that was a big game to keep an eye on too. So that was big. So you had that to check out too in that first wave of games. So that was a big game as well. But again, the Texans handled their business over the Jaguars 20-3. You had also in that first wave of games, the Saints were playing, but they didn't need anything. Didn't matter what happened there. They lost, but didn't matter what happened there. You had the Cowboys and the Giants play one of the better games of the weekend, even though it didn't matter. Nothing was going to come out of that game, but the Cowboys wanted momentum. They got it. They beat the Giants 36-35. But really, outside of those games, the Chargers beat the Broncos, which they had to do to keep pace with the Chiefs. If they wanted to have a chance at that 1 seed. But other than that, there was nothing else going on in those first wave of games, except for pride, really. Then you get to those other wave of games. I mentioned the Chiefs, but they handled their business 35-3, got some much-needed momentum, which means the Chiefs had settled their 1 seed, got it, which put the Chargers as the 5. Rams took care of business, which secured them their bye. Took care of business 48-32 over the 49ers. Still worry about their defense, but still they got the job done. The Bears did their part. They wanted to have a chance at the 2 seed. They had to win, and they did that 24-10 over the Vikings, which helped the Eagles because by the Bears beating the Vikings, that allowed the Eagles to make the playoffs with a win. And the win they did get over the Redskins 24-0 behind Nick Foles, who seems to have a magic with this Eagles team. When he plays, they win. And that's exactly what happened. He's read a magical run for them again here and took them into the playoffs. And now the Eagles make it and the Vikings go home. What happened to the Vikings is just, look, you let it go for right now. But if the same thing happened, look, this is a Vikings team that a year ago was one of the hot, trendy teams to win the Super Bowl. And that was the same going into this season. Last playoffs, we were all looking at the Vikings like they can make it to the Super Bowl. Going into this season, we thought they could make it to the Super Bowl. And they just laid an egg all season long. They were an enigma all season long. And look, you let it go for right now, but if they do the same thing next year, this team as it stands should be a Super Bowl potential team. If they don't get it done next year, then I think you start to look at not the coach, because you know the coach is good enough. He was good enough last year. You start to look at Kirk Cousins and go, can he just can't get it done. Some quarterbacks just can't get it done. He never got done with the Redskins in big situations, and now he's look what he's done to the Vikings. Case Keenum could got him closer. So we'll see. There'll be a lot of pressure on the Vikings next year for sure, but the Eagles get in. The Seahawks took care of their business. Not that they needed it. They were at the number 5 seed. And then you get to the last, or the 2 most compelling storylines: Steelers, Ravens, Colts, Titans. The Steelers are playing the Bengals while the Ravens are playing the Browns. Now, if you look at this, the Ravens had the tougher task because the Browns have been no slouch this year. Well, the Ravens were in a dogfight, but so were the Steelers, shockingly. And if that doesn't tell you where the Steelers were this season, I don't know what does. And then you got the drama of Antonio Brown. And I don't want to go into it too much today, but we have to talk about it at least a little bit here because we all know what happened with Le'Veon Bell and how it's been a big thing all season long. Well, now you get to this, and you've been hearing things about Antonio Brown all season. Even in the past, you've heard about things about Antonio Brown. And it comes to a head where he didn't show up to practice. They benched him. He didn't play in this game, which is a must-win for the Steelers. The whole thing blows up. Now there's talk he wants a trade. Him and Ben Roethlisberger don't get along. He doesn't like the fact Mike Tomlin's with Ben Roethlisberger, and he doesn't like it. It's kind of like an Adam Gase Miami situation where you hear that Adam Gase was too aligned with the quarterback, and people didn't like that. Same thing with Steelers, Mike Tomlin and Ben Roethlisberger. So lots of drama in Pittsburgh, and really, to me, that was evident this entire season. And it's been evident the last few years. You've been hearing that there's been issues with the Steelers the last few years. Think about the Pittsburgh Steelers, and what's the one thing you used to think about with the Pittsburgh Steelers? Much like a lot of quality organizations in the NFL, Eagles, Colts for the longest time, Patriots, what is it? Consistency. Whether it's from a coaching standpoint, or just the standpoint of, what you're going to get from them week in and week out. Well, the last few years, you don't with the Steelers. It was like a Jekyll and Hyde team, sometimes even the same game. They'd play a good half. They'd play a bad half. They'd play a good game. Next game would be a bad game. They were never consistent. They never were. And it really just came to a head this year because they lost Le'Veon Bell. And so when you lose a talent, your big running back, and you lose that kind of level of talent, it hurts. It's harder to cover for these locker room and chemistry issues that you have. And then you lose Antonio Brown in the last week of the season when one of the weeks when you need him the most. And then you see what happens. They can barely score. See, winning can cover up a lot of things. When you're not winning, things come apart. And that's what happened to the Steelers. And you could see it. And the high peak of their season was week 10. But to me, ever since they blew that game to the Chargers, you could see that what little fight they had left, what little they knew about themselves, what they felt was certain about them. Like we can, that spirit of, yes, we have problems. Yes, we don't have Le'Veon Bell. Yes, we're not getting along. There's all this stuff going on. Yes, 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 yes. But we can still do this. We still have enough to do this. We're going to do this. That confidence was gone. To me, when you watch the Steelers from that point on, every week looked like an uphill battle. Every week. And it's shown in the performance. And that culminated this week with no Antonio Brown and a performance that just wasn't good. Their defense did all right, but this Bengals team was terrible. And they almost beat the Steelers. Steelers come away with the 16-13 win, but it was too little too late. Because the Ravens found a way to beat the Browns, and the Browns gave it everything they had. And look, the referees probably did screw them quite a bit. But still, Ravens found a way. And, what a cool sight that was to see the Steelers on the field watching that game. That's what you want. The NFL got it, and they did it right. By having the games simultaneously together, and you could see that play out, that kind of drama. It was amazing. It was so much fun to watch. As the Ravens and the Browns game was hanging in the balance, you had the Steelers watching. So compelling. And the Ravens get it done. And the Ravens are not a team you want to play. And the Browns are not going to be a team you want to play next year. Browns are going to be a good team next year. They're going to be a potential playoff team next year. I don't know if they'll win the division, but they'll be a playoff team next year. They're that good. They came into their own this year. They really did. And Mayfield's great. He really is. But the Ravens are a team you don't want to play. A couple weeks ago it was the Chargers. I think it's the Ravens now. And the Colts. I think the Ravens and the Colts are the two teams you don't want to play. But the Ravens get it done. They move on. The Steelers go home. And we're going to be talking a lot about the Steelers going forward here because it's a mess. Antonio Brown's a guy that might look to trade, but, if they trade before June 1st, they're going to take a cap hit. I don't know what they're going to do. It's a mess in Pittsburgh. It really, really is. I don't know how you resolve it. But the Ravens move on. So that business gets settled in that second wave of games. Then the nightcap, the last game of the regular season, and you can't get better than this. After you get that Ravens-Steelers drama, if you're the NFL, what could be better than that? A playing game to the playoffs. Winner goes to the playoffs, loser goes home. And you get that between the Colts and the Titans. Now, look, some of the drama, I won't lie to you, came out of this game when you knew Mariota wasn't going to go. But Tennessee still had a good enough defense, and they still have good enough. They have Derrick Henry. You think they can still get the job done. And they kept it close early. But ultimately, I think the reason why it was so close because the Colts just couldn't get going. They got that nice little lead, and they kind of took the foot off the gas a little bit and struggled, and then they came back together again late. But Andrew Luck throws for 285 yards and 3 touchdowns, and the Colts do their thing behind him and Marlon Mack. And the Colts defense, the running game, the offensive line, all things that have improved this year. And that's the difference between this year and the past few years. They're protecting Andrew Luck. They have a healthy Andrew Luck. And they have a running back. And those 3 things cannot be overstated. And that makes them a very formidable force in these AFC playoffs. And now they advance, and the Titans, who, for years we've been waiting for them to kind of come into their own. And we always, a lot of people would like to pick them every year as a trendy sleeper pick. This year, people finally kind of got away from them. And look what they did. They were 9-7. They had a chance to make the playoffs. So they've kind of come into their own. There'll be somebody to watch next year. Look, if Mariota plays, do they win the game? No, but I think it's closer. I don't think he's that much of a difference maker, but I think it's closer. But you have to commend them because Titans played a great year. They had to win against the Patriots. I mean, they had a great year. The Colts just were the better team, and the Colts really, once luck got going and once things started to fall into place for them, became the best team in that division. They really did. If you watch them from mid-October on, they became the best team in that division. And they're going to get a chance to prove it on Saturday against the Texans. We'll talk about that game in just a second here once we look at our picks. So that settled everything. So the second wave of games and the nightcap game gives you so much drama, so much so compelling, especially the Steelers, Ravens, and building into the Titans, Colts game. Good stuff. The NFL had something to play for, and especially in that second wave of games and the nightcap game. That's all you can ask for. That's how you want the season to end, to have some drama, and you had it. So, and a month and a half ago, we were talking like we weren't going to have any. So, the NFL got lucky, and it all worked out for them. And ends up having a great last month of the season and a great end to the season. And now you hope for a great playoffs. Because as I've told you with playoffs, it can be hit or miss. Once you start lessening the amount of games, it gets harder to guarantee that you get something good. So let's take a look at what we did on our Week 17 picks here. I picked Giants over Cowboys. That was a loss. I figured Cowboys wouldn't play their guys. They did. And that's probably why they won. Jags over Texans. That was a loss for me. I thought that'd be an upset. Vikings over Bears. That's a loss for me. Again, I thought the Bears might not play hard, but they did. Eagles over Redskins. That was a win for me. Ravens over Browns. That was a win for me. And Colts over Titans. That was one for me. So, I'll say it with me. Once again, I went 3-3, which was kind of my theme for this year's regular season. We won't total up the wins and losses after the playoffs. But yeah, we all know 3-3 was a favorite of mine this year. So, but yeah, again, a good slate of games and some good drama at the end. And now we vote into the wild card round. Let's see how we do on picks. Hopefully, I don't go 2-2. I'm kind of sick of being 500. And look, I know some people are down on these games, these wild card games. I'm not. I think these games could be potentially good. I really do. Excuse me. I really do. I think these games could be potentially good, all of them. Now, again, to me, wild card weekend and divisional weekend are the best because you got 4 games, 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, which means more chances to have good games. Once you get beyond divisional weekend, and it's this championship weekend, the Super Bowl, you got 2 games championship weekend, and then Super Bowl's 1 game. If both games on championship weekend are bad, you're out of luck. If Super Bowl's bad, you're out of luck. That's the downside to it. So again, that realization that football is almost over. All right, let's get down to business here. Let's look at the walkaway. So great end of the regular season. 3-3 on the picks. Kind of par for the course this year. Now, wild card weekend. One of my favorite weekends. Again, I think these games could all be potentially good. We start off on Saturday, 4:35 p.m. Eastern time on ESPN ABC. 10-6 Colts, 4-4 on the road at the 11-5 Texans, 6-2 at home. Colts won in Houston this year. Houston won in Indy this year. Colts are the hot team. Texans, kind of iffy right now, but a month ago, I think most people thought they were the best team in that division. Now many people think the Colts are. When I look at this game, what it comes down to for me is this. We know defensively these two can match. Okay? I think they're pretty equal on defense. Running back wise, I think they're pretty equal or pretty close to it. Where they're not equal is the quarterback. Because I think when right, Andrew Luck is better than Deshaun Watson. And that to me is critical once you get to playoff football. If you have a quarterback advantage, that's very, very critical. Very critical. And with the Colts' ability to protect Luck now, that makes him even better. I'm going with the Colts here because of Andrew Luck. And I also think momentum's key too. And we say it every year, a hot team usually at least can carry to the championship game in their respective conference. The Colts might be that team this year. So I'm going with the Colts over the Texans. And what I think will be a very competitive game on Saturday. And not at all boring like people think. I know the Houston Texans game is usually boring, but I don't think this one will be. And I think it's got a good storyline too. The hot Colts versus the team that started out 0-3 and had a resurgence. I think it's a good story. A good stories on both sides. I think it'll be a good game. Second game, We go to the NFC wildcard playoff. 8:15 p.m. Eastern on Fox. The 10-6 Seahawks, 4-4 on the road at the 10-6 Cowboys, 7-1 at home. This is probably the easiest game for me to pick this weekend. And let me tell you why. Dallas is that different a team at home. If this were a road game, I would pick Seattle. With this being a home game for them, I'm picking the Cowboys. It's that easy. If you see the way Dallas plays at home versus how they play away this year, you would know what I mean. Their defense is astoundingly great at home. Dak Prescott plays better at their building. Ezekiel Elliott plays better at their building. Yes, Seattle's got a good enough defense. They're a physical team, but the Cowboys front line can handle that. I don't think they'll shy away from that. Offensively, the Seahawks can be challenged at times. I think plays into the Cowboys' hands. I think the Cowboys win this game on Saturday. And again, I think it'll be another close competitive game, but to me, it's an easy pick because of where they're playing it. I like Dallas over Seattle on Saturday. Let's go to the Sunday games. The first game, 1:05 p.m. Eastern on CBS, the 12-4 Chargers, 7-1 on the road at the 10-6 Ravens, 6-2 at home in the AFC wildcard playoff game. The second of two of the AFC wildcard playoff games. This game we got, a couple weeks ago? To me, a couple weeks ago, the Chargers were the hottest thing in football, right? Now they've cooled off. The Ravens have become hot again after being hot previously in the season, early in the season, I should say. Now this game is in Baltimore, which I think is key. Baltimore's been a good home team this year, but LA has been a great road team this year. Now, we know what the Chargers' history has been in the playoffs. It has not been good. Philip Rivers has not been good. The Chargers have laid eggs in the playoffs. But every year is different, and the Chargers have been different this year. They've been better this year. The Ravens have been a lot better of a team this year, both on offense and on defense. They found a quarterback in Lamar Jackson. He gives them a lot more athleticism, a lot more explosiveness, which makes them more dangerous on the offense. And we know that their defense can be dangerous. To me, this is a difficult game to call because really, if you look at it on paper, the Chargers should win this game. But this is one instance where I had to defer to my instinct, and my instinct tells me the Ravens. They come in with more momentum. I think they're playing better right now. I think the Chargers have kind of fallen off a little bit in the last few weeks. And I think the Ravens are going into this with a chip on their shoulder because I think people have kind of left them in the dust a little bit a few weeks ago. When they kind of cooled off a little bit. And the Ravens are always a very good playoff team. They always play well in the playoffs. Harbaugh's a very good playoff coach. I like the Ravens to beat the Chargers on Sunday. And then the second NFC wildcard playoff game, 4:40 p.m. Eastern on NBC. The 9-7 Eagles, 4-4 on the road at the 12-4 Bears, 7-1 at home. Tough game, probably the toughest game of the weekend because the Eagles are so different with Nick Foles. We've seen that. It's the reason they're in the playoffs, the reason they won the Super Bowl last year. We know that they're banged up, but they've gotten a lot of guys back, and that's made them strong when they needed to be. Their defense can definitely match up with the Bears in terms of physicality, although I think the Bears have a little more in the way of playmaker, especially up front. Offensively, the Bears are challenged. But the Eagle, so that's, to me, the key. Of this game, even though the Bears are at home, which in some ways negates that deficiency, I still think the Eagles' offensive strengths, the fact that they have more playmakers, the fact that when they have Foles in there, they seem to make more plays. Using those playmakers, he utilizes those playmakers exceptionally well. Zach Ertz being one of them. Because of the offensive strengths of the Eagles, I'm going to go with the Eagles in what I think will be the closest game of the weekend. And this is going to be the grittiest. It's going to be the ugliest, but it's going to be the closest, I think. I like the Eagles to beat the Bears on Sunday. So my picks for Wild Card Weekend, which should be a good one. Colts over Texans, Cowboys over Chargers, and Eagles over Bears. My picks for Wild Card Weekend. Next week, I obviously look at Divisional Weekend. And and look back at Wild Card Weekend. And I think it would be great. Wild Card Weekend's always fun. Divisional Weekend's always fun. If it's anything like the last month of the season and the end of the regular season, it should be a great, compelling, dramatic series of games. So NFL's had a nice – I think the NFL's had a good season. I really do. And I think the end of the season has been great, and that's what's made it so good. So, good for them. And the focus has been on football, which is always good. All right, let's jump from the pros to college. And people have been wondering how we did on our picks for the bowl season. So let me kind of go over them here real quick. Let's go over some picks here. See how we did. Just going to pull up the listing here. Excuse me. All right. Now, we didn't pick any games before, I think, Friday the 28th. Remember, I wanted to pick a lot of the bigger games, later games. Okay, so we had Auburn over Purdue, which was a win for me. Syracuse over West Virginia, that was a win. Good for us in my hometown here. Washington State over Iowa State, that was a win. So I went 3 for 3 on the 28th. That's pretty good. I haven't done these, as you can tell. Michigan over Florida. I lost on that one. That's probably why people want Jim Harbaugh fired in Michigan. I watched that game too. It's been a crazy couple weeks. You don't remember half time what you watched. South Carolina over Virginia. Virginia won that one, so that's a loss for me as well. Nevada over Arkansas State. I had that one right. Notre Dame over Clemson. That did not happen. That was a loss for me. Alabama Oklahoma was a win. Virginia Tech, I lost on that one. Stanford over Pittsburgh. I had that one. That was actually a good game, 14-13 between those two, Stanford and Pittsburgh. That was actually one of the better games. Ugly, but it was a good, decent game. So was the Red Box Bowl, Oregon, Michigan State. I lost on that one. That was an ugly game, but still, at least it was close. 7-6. Who wanted to watch that game? I mean, it was close, but still was an ugly game. Oklahoma State, Missouri. I had that one right. Win. Utah, that was a win. A&M, NC State. I lost out on that one. I won on that one. Iowa. Penn State over Kentucky. Did I have that? No, I lost on that one. LSU over UCF. That was a win. Up bad for UCF in that game. Ohio State, Washington. That was a win. Georgia over Texas. Lost out on that one. Georgia really surprised me in that game. I thought they'd do more. All right. Let's see how I did here. So I had 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, hang on a second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I went 11 and 1, 2. Let's do this again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11 and 8. Not bad. Not great. Not bad though. Look, as I said, so 11 and 8 on the bowl picks I went so far, and of course we'll pick the championship game, and we'll pick the championship game in a minute. But look, these bowl games were terrible. I mean, there were a couple close games. I noted that in the beginning. I mean, one was an ugly 7-6 game. None of these bowl games were compelling. None of these bowl. Here's the problem. I think we talked about this over the years. I understand why. I understand why they have to wait so long for these games. I get it. I really, really do. Yeah, fine. I get it. But these teams lose momentum. They really do. They lose momentum, and by the time they play these games, and here's the other thing: most of these bowl games now are so irrelevant. It used to be a thing to go to a bowl game. Now they're not, and players sit out. The good players sit out. There's like nobody's interested anymore. They're just not. They're just not. I mean, yeah, I know the schools make money, but they're not. They're not. They don't care. And I remember when people used to watch these games like crazy. Now nobody even watches them anymore. They just don't. I mean, unless you're a fan of that team, you don't watch them. It's like until like December 20, and even then, people don't really go crazy watching them. It's just not the same. And I also have to, whoever made the schedule this year, okay, whoever made the schedule for these bowl games is terrible. In what universe are we playing the 2 playoff games? I didn't note this a couple weeks ago, but I should have. How are we playing the playoff games on Saturday the 29th? And then we're playing all these bowl games on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. Why? If the college football championship game is not until next Monday, why aren't we playing those championship games, those semifinal games, either on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day? Why? And look, the Rose Bowl is the Sugar Bowl. All these games are great games, right? But to me, again, they don't matter. With the playoff thing being the way they are now, the only games that matter to people are the playoffs. As soon as you institute the playoff system, all these other bowl games lost value. This did. But now, and then to make matters worse, you kind of devalued your own playoffs because you stuck them on the 29th, and then you had 2 days of bowl games after the fact. That's stupid. All these bowl games should be building up to the semifinals. It just doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't. And don't even get me started on the champion. You all know my feelings. I said this over the years. The championship game should not be a week after, because by the time we get to it next month, nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to care anyway, because it's a game we've gotten 3 times in the last 5 years. And look, I don't want to take away from anything Alabama's done, anything Clemson's done, because they've been the 2 dominant programs in college football. They're great. They're well coached, and rivalries are great. We got like what we did in the NBA with Cleveland and Golden State, and I mean, this happens a lot with teams. I get it. I get it. But it would have been nice if things were a little bit competitive. And I know you can't help that. You make these matchups. But boy, you know what? When you looked at those semifinal games on Saturday, Notre Dame looked completely outclassed. And really, so did Oklahoma. I know Oklahoma made it more competitive, but Oklahoma did too. I'm not saying that I would have put anybody else in there. I don't know if they would have made much of a difference, but when that kind of stuff happens, it makes you wonder. Just food for thought. I'm just saying. I'm not saying that I would have taken any. I think the right 4 teams were selected, but still. And I'm sorry, but I have a pet peeve with Notre Dame, and it's a pet peeve that I have with a lot of teams after they lose games lately. It happens in football. It's happening in all sports. I don't want to hear after you lose a game, whether it's by 20 or by 2. I don't want to hear, well, if we played our game, we would have won. Well, we weren't ourselves. That's bull. I don't want to hear that. You got beat. Don't give me that crap. Because if you can't be yourself, if you can't play up to your capability in a game of that magnitude, in a semifinal game, a championship game, a playoff game, and you're using that as an excuse, well, we didn't come to play today. We came to play. You know how bad that makes you look, just submitting to that? Yeah, we kind of were coasting today, and that's why we lost. That's what you're basically saying. what you say, here's how badly that reflects on you and your team. When you say something like that, when you go out there and say, "Well, we didn't play our game today," or you know what, if we played our game, we would have won. What you're saying is that we didn't show up. And when in this kind of game, in this big game, winner take all, loser goes home. We didn't show up. You know what that tells? And you know what that tells everybody? You know what it tells your fan base? Do you know what it tells anybody that wants to take a chance on you in the NFL draft? Or if you're in another sport, if you're going to be a free agent or something, it tells people not to take a chance on you. You don't get the benefit of the doubt. You lose respect with people. Because when the lights are the brightest and when the games mean the most, you're admitting that you didn't show up, that your team didn't show up, that you didn't show up. That reflects badly on you, and it reflects badly on your coach, and it reflects badly on your team. And that's the reason why you don't say anything like that, even if it's true. And if it is true, look, let's say you don't say anything about it, that is what's going on. That's a whole other issue entirely, but at least don't say it publicly because you're creating a whole other can of worms. I just can't fathom that. I really can't. Hey, we're in a playoff game. You know, it's going to come easy for us. Let's just go out there. Oh, we didn't show. Oh, God, guys, we didn't show up. I mean, come on. Come on. Whatever happened to just going up there and saying we got beat? Doesn't matter what the reason is. We got beat. You know, we didn't play well. We got beat. No, we played our game. I mean, talk about like trying to also dig at the other team. Well, we weren't ourselves. Otherwise, we would have won. No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't have. But here's the thing: you should have been yourself. You can't be yourself in that kind of game. If you can't come out there and try to play up to your capability, then you deserve to lose. If you go out there and try to play well and it just doesn't happen, then that's different. That happens. I played sports. I know. Sometimes you go out there and you legitimately try, and this doesn't work out. You have a bad shooting game, or you have a bad passing game, or whatever. You have a bad defensive game or something. Sometimes you try your best and it still happens. You just don't play well. But when you go out there and say we didn't we just didn't play our game today, you're basically admitting that you did it. You just didn't do it. You didn't try. When you use that as an excuse, that indicates you didn't try. That's what it indicates to me. If you come out there and say we just didn't play, if you go out there on that after that game in a press conference and say, you know what, it just didn't happen for us today. We just couldn't get it done. We couldn't get going on offense. Defensively, we let them get too many big plays downfield. They had their way with us. They got us on the corners. If you go out there and say stuff like that, I know you tried. I can see it. I can hear it in your voice. When you go out there and say, "Oh, if we played our game, we would have beaten them." To me, that's bullcrap. That's just like when you're playing horse or something, and oh, well, if I hadn't eaten before I played this game, I would have been able to beat. No, don't give me that crap. Let's go out there and say you got beat. Let's go out there and say you got beat. That's all you have to do. That annoyed me. And it's something that a lot of teams, both professional and college, have been doing. It drives me crazy. Drives me crazy. So these bowl games have been terrible. I thought we were going to come over here and talk about a couple of bowl games that were really good. Maybe the Rose Bowl. I mean, it sucks what they're doing to the Rose Bowl because it's so prestigious. All these games, Sugar Bowl, it's prestigious. Don't get me wrong. I like the playoffs. I know they're never going to win these bowls, but they got to figure out something. They got to figure out some way to add value to these bowl games, make them matter, make players actually want to play. Because to me, here's the thing: I understand you don't want to get hurt and you don't want to damage your draft status and all this other stuff. I get all that, but it does hurt the value of that game if the big players don't play. It does. I don't know, the college football's got a lot of problems. I mean, it's gotten better, and the playoff system's made things more exciting. Although the last couple of years have left a lot to be desired. The first couple of years were very good. These playoff games, these semifinal games were terrible. A lot of these bowl games were terrible. I don't know if it's the selections. I don't know what it is, but they got to figure it out. But yeah, very disappointing in what's happened the last couple of weeks in college football. We have a national championship game that's same old, Alabama and Clemson. We got to make a pick here. And look, this Clemson team to me is not what the Clemson team the last couple of years has been. I think it's the weakest Clemson team. I think Alabama's better. I think Alabama took a while to get going against Oklahoma. Once they did, I thought they were typical Alabama. I think this game is not going to be even fair. I think Alabama's going to win this one handily. I really do. I really do. So I'm not even going to go into a full discussion on this. I think Alabama is going to win the national championship on Monday night over Clemson. That's my national championship pick. I don't even think it's going to be that good of a game. I just think Alabama's is too good this year. I think they're too dynamic this year. I think that Oklahoma game taking a while to get going kind of gives them a little bit of momentum because it gave them a little bit of adversity, and Oklahoma kind of getting back into it at times. So, yeah, Alabama, I think, is going to win. I think Alabama beats Clemson on Monday night, and away you go. Nick Saban adds to his legacy. I think Alabama took a little bit time to get going in that Oklahoma game. Oklahoma challenged them a little bit late. I think Alabama took their foot out the gas a little bit. Again, they faced a little bit of adversity in that game a couple times, and I think that's going to help them. Yeah, that's the other thing too about Alabama. I think that's what gives them such an enormous edge in these games. Alabama gets challenged. The SEC challenges you week after week. Not the ACC is getting better, but it's not the SEC. That's the thing. Alabama gets challenged. If they have to face any kind of adversity within the game, they're prepared for it. You saw that in that Oklahoma game. They didn't fold. Clemson, we've seen fold. I mean, they've managed to win, and I know they've been unbeaten and everything, but you saw them even against Syracuse. They almost lost that game. Clemson's not what they were. They're still very good, but they're not what they were a couple years ago. They're not up to me. They're this when Clemson beat Alabama before the national championship game, you understood it. If Clemson beat Alabama on Monday night, I would be shocked. I consider that a pretty big upset. I would. But I think Alabama's going to win big on Monday. I do. I think Alabama's going to win big on Monday. So that's my national championship pick, and that's going to be our last bowl pick for the season. Alabama over Clemson. Now, here's something that I'm going to do right now. Well, no, we'll wait on that. I was going to do over-unders for the NFL, but no, we'll wait to the end of the season. It's better to do that with the NFL season wrap-up after the Super Bowl, so we'll leave that for that time, even though we could conceivably do it now because we have the regular season win totals, but we'll leave that for right now. I was going to do it right now, even though we're not doing NFL because I saw it, but yeah, we'll leave it. We'll leave it alone to the end of the season. So, all right, so that's it. That's college football. Again, I said there isn't a lot to talk about there. I'm sorry. It disappointed. It really did. So yeah, again, not anything to talk about in basketball. College basketball had a pretty quiet couple weeks, so we'll leave that for next week. We'll bring that back next week. Conference play is just getting going. We'll talk about everything from the last couple weeks and what's going on this week and such all next week. We'll kind of bring it all together. I didn't want to do any college basketball tonight because, again, we had so much football to do and such. So we'll leave that alone. I talked about baseball at the beginning, not anything else really going on. We'll obviously talk more baseball next week, assuming more stuff goes down, which I anticipate it will. I said we do a little bit of wrestling at the end of the show, which we will. Right now, we'll jump to some entertainment. Again, TV highlights will be back next week as well. Right now, I'm just going to do the box office beat. And this could be a short box office beat because last week was kind of that, it's obviously New Year's week. And no really new offerings. We talked about it last week. It was, you had the Christmas releases last week of Vice and Holmes and Watson. Both open on Christmas, but that obviously was going to hurt their weekend totals because a lot of people go to see movies on Christmas night. And you got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday with a lot of people home, so that kind of hurts your weekend a little bit. So we knew that those movies weren't going to do probably great numbers, although I still thought they'd do a little bit better than they did. This weekend pretty much went according to plan in terms of what was at the top. Aquaman got took the weekend number one again with 52.1 million, only dropping 23.2%, which is tremendous. And this movie figures to be the DC Cinematic Universe's first billion-dollar movie. I think we can say that now. It's at 846.3 million worldwide. It's going to hit $1 billion, which is crazy. But again, it's a movie that appeals very much to overseas. It's the way it goes. So Aquaman doing exceptionally well. Even if it's not doing great domestically, it's still doing very well overseas. Mary Poppins Returns stayed put in second, like Aquaman stayed put in first, 28.3 million, gained 20.5%, which is good for that movie because it did disappoint in its first week, in my opinion, a little bit, and it's kind of made up the difference there. So that's very important for it's over 200 million worldwide now, so I think it's going to be just fine. Bumblebee stayed put in third, 20.9 million, only dropping 3.5%, so word of mouth helping that film. It's up to 190 million worldwide on its $135 million budget. Kind of disappointing, but it's holding its own. It'll probably make a modest profit, not great, but it's kind of unfair in my opinion that what's probably the best Transformers movie isn't doing the best, but maybe a little bit of fatigue there in the franchise. Maybe all the bad Michael Bay movies hurt its momentum, kind of like how Batman Begins had to kind of rebuild Batman. Maybe Bumblebee's going to rebuild Transformers, and if they do another movie, it'll get better received, or at least make more money. Because that's kind of what happens if a franchise has been bad for a little bit. A good movie comes out, it might not do as well because the movies before it in this franchise didn't do so, were not good. So you have to kind of rebuild faith with the fans, and I think Bumblebee's doing that. And if they do another movie after this, that might do better because you would have built back faith with the fans. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse stayed put in fourth, actually gained 14.2%, 18.7 million. That movie that did not get off to a great start is really improved over the last couple of weeks. It's up to 227.4 million worldwide. So it's well on its way now. No worries about where it's going to go. The Mule stayed put in fifth with 12.1 million, a 28% increase on its previous week. So all of these movies getting boosts from Christmas, obviously, and the holidays. With New Year's New Year's Eve being on Monday allowed the weekend to be without any distraction. You could go see a movie and not have a million things to do. Plus Christmas now being at that point being over, people weren't worried about shopping. They're going to movies. Maybe they have gift cards, that kind of thing. It's up to $70.5 million on $50 million budget, so over its budget. No issues there. And then the two new releases from last week, Vice and Holmes and Watson, came in 6th and 7th respectively. Vice, 7.7 million. Holmes and Watson, 7.4 million, which is not great. Holmes and Watson made 28.3 million worldwide. It's got $42 million budget, so at least probably break even. Vice, a lot of awards talk about that film. It's made 23 million. Not bad, not great. We'll see how well it does. As it goes over these next few weeks here, if it gains some momentum, if the awards discussion helps it a little bit, we'll see. But not great for either one of these movies. And then after that, you had Second Act, which dropped from 7th to 8th in its second week with 7.3 million. Actually a 13.4% increase, but that didn't stop it from dropping. And then you had Ralph Breaks the Internet dropping from 8th to 9th with 6.7 million. Actually gained 43% from its previous week, but not enough to keep it from falling as well. And everything else under 5 million. So all in all, pretty good week. You had 9 movies over 5 million. And then you had obviously Aquaman at the top with over 50 million. It ends up being a very solid weekend at the box office. And even with the two new releases in Vice and Holmes and Watson not doing great, the holdovers more than handled themselves and kept things afloat. Now you head into a next couple weeks here where it's hard to tell how things are going to end up. Now this week it's not, because you have a movie, you have one new release, and it's something that probably won't do great, but stranger things have happened. And then next week you have 3 new releases as you head towards Martin Luther King Day, and you wait and see how they end up, and then after that you start to build some momentum as you head towards February. But it's always hard to tell in early January. January's become a month. Used to be a dumping ground, but now it's become a month where you can kind of put some movies there and just see what they do, and you kind of look at them as maybe sleeper hits. That's kind of what January has become. This weekend, you got one new release, as I said, Escape Room, a horror film from Sony Columbia, opening in 2,717 theaters. PG-13. It's got a production budget of $9 million. So it doesn't have to make much to make its money back, and I don't think it will make much. I could see it just making back its budget in its first week. So I don't really see it doing much. Aquaman's going to win this weekend, probably fairly easily. And I would expect Mary Poppins and Bumblebee and Spider-Man all to hold their spots and be above Escape Room. So that's how I see this weekend going. Aquaman will be number 1. Let's go around 25 to 30 million. Mary Poppins returns in second with around 13 to 15. Bumblebee around 11 to 12. And third, Spider-Man around 9 to 10. I'll put Escape Room around 8.5, right in there. The Mule probably be right there too, very close to it, 7.5, 8, maybe even can beat that. I'll say Vice around 6 million homes, and Watson around 5, maybe a little lower than that. And I think everything else will be under 5 million here, as now that the holidays over, you expect to see some drops with people back to school and work and such. So that's how I see this weekend go. So I think it's going to be a quiet weekend. Won't be a great weekend, but with the holdovers, Aquaman, Mary Poppins, Bumblebee, I think they'll keep this from being a bad weekend. I think it'll be just a solid weekend. As now we transition from the holiday movie season into the new year and start to build towards February, which is always a big movie month. So yeah, not much to say. Box office is what it is. Big story continues to be Aquaman and Mary Poppins and Bumblebee, and as we thought it would be. And that's on the positive side. Negative side, Holmes and Watson not doing great. Vice not doing particularly well, but that could change with the award stuff going on. But we'll see how things turn out over these next couple of weeks here as we transition out of holiday movie season. All right, so again, I said that was going to be quick, and it was. That's the box office. That's the only entertainment stuff we have for you tonight. And now we're going to, as I said at the top of the show, I do a little brief mention of wrestling. And as I said, Raw and Smack, as far as WWE goes, not a lot going on. Raw and SmackDown were both taped. There was some developments. You had the good Triple H Seth Rollins promo, which is clearly building him towards whatever WrestleMania program he's going to have. They had Paul Heyman do a promo. Really not much going on. SmackDown had more going at the Fatal 5, where they decided it was going to face Daniel Bryan. AJ Styles won that. Probably to blow off the feud at Rumble, so no shocks there. But you had the good Asuka segment, which is to build to who she's going to face, and you had more Rumble qualifying stuff. And I mean, there's not a whole lot. Not a whole lot going on. I mean, I would say the only interesting thing was the Becky Cena segment, and it's interesting to see John Cena on both shows. When a couple, was it 2 weeks ago, he did an interview where he said that he wasn't going to do any TV, and here he is. So kind of weird how things change in that regard. But that's really all that's been going on. Raw and SmackDown very uneventful this week. The first Raw of the new year is always when things turn, and that's going to happen on Monday. They're going up against the National Championship game, and Vince McMahon always tries to stack the show, and he is going to stack the show. You got Braun Strowman, Brock Lesnar, Cena all on Raw Monday. You should start to see some big angles. You start to see some hints of what's to come. So starting Monday, sorry, I got distracted by something. Starting Monday, on Raw, every show from that till WrestleMania will probably be big. Every show. Because, again, I mean, there's no competition from football. There's no competition from football. WrestleMania is getting closer. That's when they start to care. And that's usually when they get a lot of people back and legends and stuff like that. So I think you're going to see things are going to really amp up starting on Monday. So we'll have a lot to talk about. And really, I mean, again, not much going on in WWE. It's always quiet around the holidays. Shows are taped. You got all this stuff about all elite wrestling and that promotion, how they want to sign some people away from WWE. There's rumors they might sign Goldberg. There's a lot of stuff in the universe about that, but nothing confirmed yet. Obviously, if anything big happens with that, we'll talk about it. But yeah, I mean, again, it's been pretty quiet. So again, I said I'd mention it briefly, just kind of throw out a few things. That's what I just did. Just not a lot going on. During the holidays, this isn't, But I didn't want to acknowledge a few things just to kind of throw our wrestling fans a bone. So yeah. With that being said, I think we're done, which is good because it's 11:30. I don't like to go too late if I can avoid it. So let's wind down the show here on this Thursday night. As always, the show might be over. Does not mean you have to stop interacting and contributing to our show. Continue to have your voice heard. Send us your feedback, questions about the show, the scheduling of the show, topic ideas, or breaking news items related to sports, entertainment, or wrestling that you want us to cover. Questions about the show, the scheduling of the show, submissions for the In the Spotlight Film Awards. Again, you can only make submissions by email only, but you can ask us questions by email, Facebook, and Twitter. So please remember that. So with all that in mind, remember, email address for our show is itspotlight411@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight411. Remember to use the hashtag itspotlight411 for anything you tweet in regards to the show. And as always, you can find us on Facebook. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on Facebook and make sure that you like our fan page. Once you find it or once you're on it, so you can interact with us and all that good stuff. So follow us on Facebook and Twitter, please, so you keep up with the show, get all the latest announcements about the show, scheduling, any of those things, and you can interact with us. And so just make sure you follow us on Facebook and Twitter. That's very, very important because you can always email us as well. So make sure you keep all that information in mind. You have two ways to keep up with the show and look back at classic episodes. You can either stream us anytime on our main host site, YouTube. Just search In the Spotlight 411. And when you do, you'll be taken to our show page. We will find every episode we ever produced for YouTube. Going way back to when Google Plus was around. So every episode from mid-October 2015, all up to tonight's current episode, all available for you to stream anytime you want. So if you're interested in streaming us, any of our more recent episodes in the last few years, head over to YouTube and search In the Spotlight 411. If streaming is not your thing, maybe prefer to listen to us on the go, or maybe interested in older episodes of the show. If any of that applies to you, check us out on Podbean and iTunes. Just search for In the Spotlight 411. And when you do, you'll be taken to our show page on both those sites, where you'll have access to every episode we've ever produced in the 8 years we've been doing this show. So every episode from our original run on Blog Talk Radio, every episode from our run on TalkShoe, every episode from our run here on YouTube from mid-October 2015 all the way up to tonight's current episode. Every episode is an audio format for your convenience. So every episode from YouTube is an audio format for your convenience. Even though it's on YouTube and streaming, we transfer everything, so it's all there for you. So every episode from the most recent, that being tonight's, way back to the oldest in October 2010, all available for you to listen to anytime you want. So if you're a longtime fan or wants to check out our show from 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, or a new fan wants to check an episode like that for the first time, and just want to keep up with current episodes, or you miss an episode, anything that applies to you, check us out on our two of our host sites, Podbean and iTunes. Just search for In the Spotlight 411. Again, just search for In the Spotlight 411. Google Plus, YouTube, Podbean, iTunes. Google Plus, YouTube, Podbean, iTunes. Your ways to keep with the show and look back at classic episodes. Just search for In the Spotlight 411. Then just search for In the Spotlight 411. I'm trying to get in the habit of saying YouTube's our main host site and not Podbean and iTunes, because we use YouTube more, but sometimes I screw that up. So I want to give a shout out to my co-host Mike. Even though he's not here with us tonight, he will be back with us on Tuesday. According to what he said, he'll be with us on Tuesdays for the next few weeks, and then we'll see if we can get him on here more once things pick up. But he'll be with us on Tuesdays going forward here. So shout out to him. Hope everything's going well for him. And pat myself on the back for another great show, as I always do here. And I want to thank you all for joining us here tonight on this first show of 2019. Good to have you all back. I hope you again had a good holidays, and thank you for listening and watching. Those who be listening and watching this later, thank you to you as well. A lot of people have been asking me, and before we get off the air, I'm going to acknowledge this. They said sometimes lately you seem a little distracted. And and maybe not as organized. Like things have kind of meandered at times within the shows, and even tonight. It's happened a lot. Like, we're not transitioning into and out of topics as crisp as we usually do. Sometimes things get messy, and it just seems like I've gotten a lot of feedback about that over the last maybe 6 weeks or so. People ask me that, like, oh, it seems like you get distracted. Sometimes you seem like you're tired and da da da. Look, yes, it's been a rough couple weeks. It's the first holiday season with my baby girl, my daughter. There's been a lot going on. It has been harder because I've been doing a lot of the shows by myself. And then of course doing the 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern shows later shows. It can, especially if you had a long day of work, and that gets exhausting. I've been doing my best. It's helped that I've had Mike do a couple shows with me over these last couple of weeks, which have been good shows. So yes, it has been rough. I've been trying. I've even acknowledged a couple of times that I've had a little bit of a hard time. Sometimes I've rambled more than usual. So what I'm going to say, and a lot, and look, by saying that we've gotten feedback, it hasn't been too negative. It's that people have been noticing and asking if I'm okay. I am okay. Things are getting better. I'm getting, more rest, as far as things aren't as hectic, I should say. Things will get better. Again, we got a lot of new stuff planned, a lot of things coming up on the show. Now that the holidays are over, I think things will calm down a little bit and allow me to focus more on things and be able to, whatever, be more laser sharp, I suppose is a good term. But listen, I come on here twice a week and try to do the best I can. And yes, lately I haven't been doing the best that I think I should be able to do. Now, is it my fault? I'm going to blame myself, but it probably isn't because I have other responsibilities. But I am going to take the blame, and I'm going to just keep promising to do better. And I think I will do better. I think things will get a lot better over these next few weeks. And I think people will see that. And especially once we get to the new structure of the show in February and whatnot, I think people will see it. And I think everything will kind of fall into place. So to those that are worried, don't be. I'm okay. And thank you for your patience. And as we start 2019, let's hope for better. And in fact, I'm not even going to hope for better. I'm going to promise you better. And I think it's going to be a great year for us on the show. Last year was kind of a weird year because, it was. At the beginning of the year, my wife was pregnant, and then she had a rough last month of the pregnancy. And then, she had the baby, and I kind of took a sabbatical for a while, and we came back. We kind of did one show for the longest time, and then in September we went back to doing 2 shows, and then Mike kind of had to duck out abruptly in May and not be on the show anymore, which kind of messed a lot of the plans up, and that's not his fault. That's life. And we tried to start things a couple of times. There was a lot of uncertainty, and we're kind of coming out of that now. It was a rough year for us on the show. I shouldn't say rough year because it was a great year for me because I had my baby girl who I love very, very much, my daughter. And so that makes last year a great year for me. Great year. So I shouldn't say a rough year, because personally for me it was a great year. But in terms of the show, it was a rough year because there was so much that kind of made it hard to get things going. But this year I think we'll be able to focus on the show and do a lot more with it. So I think 2019 will be a much better year for us, and as far as the show goes, and I think you can look forward to that. So here's to a great year in 2019. That's it for our first show of 2019. I hope you all have a great rest of your night, a great weekend, and a great start to week next week. We're back with you next week for 2 shows. Remember, next week, 2 shows. Tuesday, sports and wrestling. We'll cover any big stuff in baseball, college basketball, wild card weekend in the NFL. Look ahead to the divisional playoff weekend. We'll cover the national championship game. Wrestling we'll cover as well. All the big stuff from Raw, SmackDown, all that stuff. Next Thursday, entertainment, box office beat, TV highlights return. Next week is also the deadline for the nomination ballots for this year's Film Awards, so make sure you note that. So next week, a big week on the show, back to 2 shows and back into our normal schedule. So that's next week. Until then, again, have a great rest of your night, a great weekend, and a great start to week next week. We'll see you back here this coming Tuesday, January the 8th at time. Until then, good night, everybody.